Welcome to the Gilded Heiresses. I'm your host, Julie Montague, Countess of Sandwich and Gilded Age historian. And in this episode, we're taking another trip across the Atlantic, but this time, not with trunks full of gowns and tiaras, but with ambition, steel, and good old-fashioned enterprise. We often hear of the famous dollar princesses who, with their wealth, secured their places amongst the British elite through advantageous marriages with land-rich, pocket-poor dukes. But today, we're shifting focus to their fathers, brothers, uncles, and peers. The self-made American elite who didn't just buy up British properties, but bought into British society. These were the entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and financiers who, without titles or old family crests, carved out a place for themselves in a world that wasn't exactly built to welcome them. So, how did the nouveau riche of America's Gilded Age find their footing in the drawing rooms of a Britain obsessed with class, where ancestry and pedigree often counted for more than fortune? Let's find out. By the late 19th century, America was producing millionaires at an astonishing pace. Men like Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and George Peabody had risen from modest beginnings to amass fortunes through industry, banking, and railroads. But while America admired a rags-to-riches tale, British society held tighter to its aristocratic traditions. And yet, these American magnates were increasingly turning their sights and ships towards Europe. Some sought culture, others sought class, but all understood one thing. While they might never inherit a title, they could still shape the world they moved in. George Peabody, a banker and philanthropist, set the tone early. Despite humble beginnings in a poor family from Massachusetts, by the 1860s, he had established himself in London society, then the financial capital of the world, through charitable giving, funding housing projects for the working poor, and endowing libraries. Queen Victoria even granted him a funeral at Westminster Abbey, an extraordinary honor for a man without noble blood. Peabody's legacy also helped pave the way for future American philanthropists who viewed Britain not as a rival, but as a partner in progress. His housing developments, particularly the Peabody Trust estates, continue to provide affordable homes in London today, a testament to how wealth from America's nouveau riche influenced the social landscape of the UK. Newly minted American millionaires learned one thing early. If cash alone couldn't open every door, philanthropy often could. Andrew Carnegie, a Scottish-American titan, amassed his fortune in steel. But his influence in Britain stemmed from his belief in what he called the gospel of wealth. He poured millions into public libraries, educational trusts, and cultural projects across the UK, leaving a legacy not just of architecture, but of American-style generosity adapted to British tastes. By 1919, over 660 Carnegie libraries. By 1919, over 660 Carnegie libraries had been built in Britain and Ireland. But these acts of generosity weren't simply kind gestures. They were strategic. They demonstrated moral authority and civic duty, giving Americans like himself social standing in circles that might otherwise have dismissed them as brash colonials. In many ways, philanthropy became a form of soft diplomacy by funding causes close to Britain's heart, such as education, welfare, and civic improvement. American industrialists not only bolstered their own reputations, but also fostered goodwill between the two nations. It was ambition with a conscience, or at least the appearance of one. Another way the self-made elite embedded themselves in British life was through real estate. Wealthy Americans purchased country homes, Scottish estates, and London townhouses, often ones that the British aristocracy could no longer afford to maintain. But like their extravagant displays of community generosity, the foray into bricks and mortar went beyond the desire for holiday homes. These were games of social chess. By buying, restoring, and funding the operation of these estates, American tycoons quite literally preserved the institutions they were trying to join. This created a curious dynamic in which the British elite relied on American money to maintain their ancestral homes, while Americans used those homes to build their reputations. One striking example is Watston Manor, purchased from the Duke of Marlborough by Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild, whose French family straddled the worlds of European banking and British nobility. Though not American, the Rothschilds exemplified the blend of wealth, culture, and strategic charity that many New World elites would adopt and admire. When it came to basking in British culture and blowing off steam, the self-made American elite did more than attend parties and balls. They joined institutions. Men of Carnegie and Peabody's standing became members of exclusive guilds like the Athenaeum Club and the Royal Societies. Their names appeared in donor lists and guest books. Through quiet influence, in other words, supporting museums, hospitals, and universities, they earned invitations to restricted gatherings and thus respect. Women played their part too. American heiresses such as Mary Leiter Curzon, who became Viceroy of India, and Cornelia Martin, who became Lady Craven, were more than the wives of wealthy men. They were skilled social diplomats. They hosted salons, supported causes, and acted as cultural bridges between American money and British tradition. For a class defined by lineage, the British upper crust was surprisingly flexible when their traditions depended on new funds. So what was the legacy of these self-made Americans in Britain? Well, they changed what ambition looked like. The British aristocracy, long defined by birth and title, now had to contend with individuals whose power stemmed from wealth, innovation, and ambition. Unsurprisingly, this led to resistance from those unwilling to loosen their grip on the ever-changing status quo. In 1916, the appointment of wealthy New Yorker William Waldorf Astor to the first Viscount of Astor sparked significant controversy. Critics claimed Astor had effectively bought his way into the British peerage, just one of many examples of mounting discomfort within traditional circles toward foreign wealth obtaining titles. But not everyone was reluctant to change. The new American elite helped preserve British cultural institutions, ironically, by challenging the very assumptions those institutions had been built on. They also created a transatlantic model of influence. These Americans were not merely guests in Britain. They became stakeholders. Their philanthropy helped shape policy. Their clubs helped shape culture. And their money helped save many historic estates. Today, many of their foundations, homes, and charitable ventures still exist. They may not have earned peerages, but they secured something just as long-lasting: legacy. I'm Julie Montague, Countess of Sandwich. Thank you for joining me on the Gilded Heiresses. Until next time.